Good afternoon. Well, it's 70 degrees here, 71 or 72. That is remarkable. And the sky is threatening rain, and there's a little wind. So that's what it's like here in Northern Virginia, the home of Thomas Jefferson. He did travel up this way. He wrote about it in Notes on Virginia. It's one of the few long things he wrote to explain the value of Virginia and what we were like to the French. We've come a long way. Then in those days, we fought for democracy. We fought for self-representation. Jefferson was especially hurt when he tried to help France in its time and got resistance from here because the French had helped us, whereas the English, as you know, were the enemy. But America was divided into those two camps, and that made it difficult for us to support the French. But we did, not with troops on the ground. So the modern theater of war is very different. And we have the situation in Ukraine, which is sad because the outcome seems predetermined. And the method to change that outcome, that is by the help of the United States and the West, is just not happening. It's just talk. And there's going to be a terrible waste of life, of prospective futures, of education, of study, of culture, of art, of industry, of science. In this beautiful historical nation state that has so many wonderful sites. And I mentioned Odessa today, which is by the Black Sea and is going to probably be destroyed by the time you hear this tape. So, I've talked already about how, in my opinion, America has failed its responsibility to other democracies. And to quote the law when it's being broken by someone else strikes me as an astonishing, asymmetric ethical choice. But that's what we do. And how do we explain asymmetrical ethical choices? Because it doesn't work. These nation states don't want to be in war. They don't want to sully the fabric of their capitalistic sentiments and actually get involved in a fight for democracy, which tells us something about democracy and those allied with it. It's not dependable. We have to change that, not just for Ukraine, although it's too late for that, I suppose, but for the near and distant future. Because when Putin succeeds, and I'd say the chances are almost unity that he will, you can expect China and Korea to take another look at the warring landscape and the cowardice that allowed Ukraine to happen. Also on my mind today, returning home, where we seem to allow lawlessness among the most powerful bullies we have, just like we defer and bow to a bully like Putin. And I'm talking about the fact that Trump and his corrupt minions tried to overthrow an election and continue to work in this way. And we should look at the evidence, at least to educate ourselves how these people do this. We have Roger Stone made tapes for years with, I believe, a Danish company. And in that, they also captured the times from the election on when Roger Stone was planning the overthrow and selling pardons and getting his own and hoping for other pardons for mobsters and a lawyer who represented mobsters who would represent Trump at his impeachment for trying to overthrow the government. And the Republicans stood there as quiet, corrupt conspirators in the overthrow of the government by failing to do their duty and to impeach Trump. And as for prosecutions now, it appears from a report today that DA Vance in the Manhattan DA's office, across the street from where I used to serve as an assistant U.S. attorney. Vance had decided to go forward after scrutinizing the evidence, the insider testimony, and so forth. So what happened? Well, on the way to indictment of Trump personally, not somebody else, but Trump, there was an election and a new DA came into office, and at first he appeared supportive of the investigation, but as time went on, his legs knocked, he got afraid, and he was looking for a way out, and he enlisted other prosecutors in the office, unnamed, and their backgrounds and motivations undisclosed as yet, but we'll know. And the only way I can put it is they conspired against going forward with the indictment that Vance approved and the two top prosecutors supported. And they had to deal with the following question. We need an insider to put the intent in Trump's head. Well, they had an insider. His name's Michael Cohen. He's been tested. He's talked about the subject of what this prosecution would be, namely misrepresentations as to the value of Trump's properties. On the one hand, saying the property is worth less for tax purposes, and the other hand, saying the same property is worth more for purposes of getting debt, which is how Trump has operated his extravagant, perhaps Wild West front of wealth all these years. So we should be investigating Bragg, and some people should be thinking about throwing him out of office because this whole thing is terribly suspicious. The two prosecutors left. They're not talking on the record. I don't know if they're talking off the record to friends. The group of assistant U.S. attorneys I serve with has an annual dinner. I won't be going to it because of the COVID question, the Omicron question, COVID question. But I saw that one of the two prosecutors who's in our class, if you will, he's going. And I was very tempted to send him an email or call him and ask him the questions. But I thought that would be insulting because he has to figure out how to do that himself. And he's certainly competent to do it. He has a long history of dealing with very difficult issues as a young puppy prosecutor through seniority in the office and private practice and on this investigation. So I have no doubt that Mark Pomerantz knows his own mind, and he will find a way to be faithful to the law and the Constitution and good ethics. So that's that. Well, that's all I got to say today in my cathedral of trees. And on a 70-degree day, I'm sure pretty soon we're going to see flowers everywhere and green grass. Maybe not soon enough. And then we can complain about the heat. Bye-bye.